Hi, everyone, and welcome to Signature West Podcast. I'm your host, Sam West from Palm Springs, California. My guest today is Peter Fitzgerald. He is the man behind a short film documentary called Butch Please. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Sam. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Yes.
Another
So,
sunny day.
a chilly morning.
Yeah. Well, for us, chilly.
Yeah,
Talk to Minnesota. They'll tell you something else.
I'll pass. I'll pass. So, before we get into Butch Please, let's go back
Hmm.
to when you fell in love with this whole industry. I believe you were 10 years old.
Oh, yeah. I was just a kid, and I was in love with watching movies on TV. But unfortunately, we only had a black and white TV.
Yep.
And so when I saw The Wizard of Oz for the first time, which was probably much before I was 10, I had no idea that Munchkinland was in color. I had no idea, but I still loved the movie.
Right.
And that kind of followed for watching movies as a kid. There was a thing called the 3:30 movie here in Los Angeles on ABC. And they would have, let's say, Beach Party Week, and they'd play all the Beach Party movies. And then they'd play MGM Musical Week. And that was one of the best for
So
me.
you were in LA during when you were 10.
Yeah, I grew up in Southern
So
California.
you were immersed in the Hollywood scene.
Well, I wanted to be. Our across the street neighbor was an old movie star named Pat O'Brien, who was famous for playing Irishman
Right.
in movies. And I dreamed that one day the limo would come pick me up and take me away to Hollywood.
You were immersed in the Hollywood scene. How could you live in LA without being immersed in the Hollywood scene? You just can't.
Well, I was a wannabe. I wasn't
Right.
quite immersed until I came back to LA from New York. When I moved to New York when I was 18 to be in a show called A Chorus Line,
Right.
and
Never heard of it.
never heard of
Never
it.
heard of it.
Yeah. So I did that show and a couple more. I did the Radio City Christmas show, etc. And then I moved back to Los Angeles in 1987, which really dates me. I'm 58 years old. Let's get that out of the way. And then I really joined the Hollywood scene, making documentaries for the Laserdisc and DVD releases of classic movies, because I had this big classic movie background, having been to all the revival cinemas in New York.
Was that when you fell in love with VHS in the 70s? And you went
This was
kind of
before VHS, believe it
before
or not.
VHS. Okay. All right. I'm ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but then when VHS came along, it really kicked in.
It really
And I
kicked in.
pretty much memorized all of the great films from the silent era up into the 1960 or so. And the great movies that I worked with were from the MGM and Warner Brothers libraries.
Hmm.
And that continued when I worked for MGM UA Home Video, and then later Warner Brothers Home Video, in making documentaries, and also with Turner Classic Movies.
So this was around 1994.
1994 was a really watershed year for me. I had been doing a few of these documentaries, and then this project came along at MGM called That's Entertainment 3. And it dealt with classic films, particularly MGM musicals. And I was assigned to be the executive producer on the film. So it was a great experience. I worked with all of my heroes. I worked with Gene Kelly and Esther Williams, the
Lena
great
Horne.
Lena Horne.
Lena
Yes,
Horne.
that was one of the greatest experiences for me, working with Lena. She was a consummate professional and a really inspirational person.
And how old were you then?
I was 30.
Okay. So you're like, it's prime. You're prime.
Yeah, it was a perfect time
Perfect
to
time.
make the transition from
Right.
acting to
Right.
producing.
Right. Right. And I quote, it says, you said, took it like a duck to water and haven't stopped since.
Absolutely. I'm still in love with the movie making process. I've worked in documentary for almost all of my career, and I just love it. It's wonderful. Although I would like to make a narrative film.
I don't watch TV, but if I do, especially movies, if I do, they're 99.9% documentaries or films based on a true story. That's all I
Ah,
watch. I can't
so
watch anything else.
yeah.
Yeah, these are my favorite, because you're feeling somebody else's life or somebody else's story.
Are you going to
Uh,
start making movies now?
No, but I wrote a book, an autobiography, which is my story, and that led into my
Oh, we
second
could make
book.
that into a movie.
I'll send you a copy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's read that.
But the interesting thing when you write a book, I don't know if you had this experience, at a certain point of one's life, and then life goes on 10, 20 years later, or 50, even 5 years later, the book
Mm.
seems to be a little bit dated. Like, okay, that was me then. That's not me now. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
We
kind of
all.
like I don't want to even look at that anymore. But okay, it was a great process. It was a great
Yeah.
process.
I'd love to read it.
Okay, send you the link. Um, so now, moving forward to 2000, what, 18 or 19, when you wanted to explore the male artistic um, point of view, free expression, as you would call it.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
what happened then?
Well, I made the transition from making documentaries on classic films, and this was a commercial enterprise, really. It was related to the DVD releases of films, and it was for Turner Classic Movies. And then after the recession, everything changed, and I became a TV editor for a while. Worked on a show called Dance Moms, which was all kinds of
Oh
stories,
yeah, oh yeah,
all kinds of
oh
stories
yeah.
there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Was that on? It was on Bravo. It was
a lifetime.
Lifetime. Lifetime.
Yeah,
Yep.
lifetime.
Yep.
And trust me, they make her look nicer than she really is.
Oh
So
dear.
that's all I'll say about
That's all I
that.
would say about that. Okay. Okay.
Anyway, so I decided to continue making documentaries, but I'm making them now on a different genre than the classic film thing.
I would
And
say a
I
very
made
different
one.
genre.
Yeah, in
I would say a very
2018,
different.
I made a documentary about a friend of mine, George Drury Smith, and it's called Beyond Mr. Smith, and it won an award at the Amsterdam Film Festival. So
Love it.
I was really delighted about that, and it was really about the founder of Beyond Baroque, which is that Venice, California literary society and cultural center, and which has become like a world famous in the literary circles all around the world. So it's about the man who founded it, and so I'm making films that are more about artists. But most recent film that I'm making is completely different. That's different than anything I've ever done before.
And that's the Butch Please.
Butch Please, yes,
Yes. Okay.
which can be pronounced Butch Please.
Right. I just didn't want to go there yet. Yeah. Probably by
That's all
the end of the session, I will.
right.
So, what made you pick this particular group that you wanted to explore their masculine freedom of expression as opposed to, I don't know, another group?
Well, I guess it's because I can relate. I feel like I'm a member of the largely the majority of gay men, men that identify as men, cis gay men. And my issue started because all the representations that I saw on television were drag queens and a very stereotypical depiction of gay men, and never would they have a masculine gay man in the role of a hero in anything. I think Brokeback Mountain was the only one, and those actors were terrific.
But it wasn't exactly, I mean, I don't find either character was a strong masculine man by any, at least in my definition. They had their
Oh,
own weakness and they had their own trauma and they had their own, they were not exactly solid in their own skin.
interesting. That's an interesting.
Yeah,
I've learned from doing this documentary, which, well, let me talk about the documentary a little
sure.
more because it's the way that I explored gay masculinity was to go to what I consider ground zero for gay masculinity, which is a yearly convention of leather folk called International Mr. Leather, which is in Chicago in May every year. There wasn't one this year because of the pandemic, but it is the place where I interviewed numerous people uh, about their definition of masculinity as a gay leatherman. I'm a leatherman myself, so it's really illuminated for me people's perceptions of what masculinity is. Like you just said, like they have weaknesses, etc. Well, We all do,
We all
don't we?
do. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
everybody, even the most, and what it's what I call the spectrum.
Right.
There's a spectrum of masculinity.
Right.
Number one being feminine, and number 10 being masculine. And I asked everybody in the documentary, where do you sit on the spectrum, on the
Hmm.
Butch spectrum? And most people said, 5 or 6. And it made me think about what we consider to be masculine.
Right.
Because these guys, as far as I was concerned, were between 7 and 9. And it's
Interesting.
because I think of so much, oh, how do I say this properly without offending anybody?
The
Um,
outdoor physique.
well, no, because we all know butch-looking men who open their mouth and a purse falls out,
Right. Right.
We
Right.
all
Right.
know those times.
Right.
But I think there's so much imprinting done by mass media about what it is to be a gay man. And you see the character of Jack on Will and Grace, who's a very flippant, very effeminate sort of guy,
Hmm.
and you see so many representations, and that informs people about how to be and who to be. And I wanted to explore the opposite about masculine gay men.
Right.
And what I've come to learn is that we're all on the spectrum somewhere. Even the most butch men, gay men,
By definition.
have some level of emotional facility that is completely different than straight people.
Right.
And it's in a way a celebration of what it is to be masculine and gay, because it does include a greater emotional spectrum. It does include a level of femininity that most straight men just don't have, because they were informed a different way. A lot of people, I think, straight men are kind of stuck in the John Wayne syndrome still,
Right. Right.
where they were taught to be without feeling and to not express certain things because you don't want to look gay.
Right.
And gay people, of course, don't have to worry about that if they're out. And so this isn't really about wanting to appear straight. That's not what this is about at all. And it's not about any rebellion from the sissy norms that we have. It's about people that actually sit in their homosexual masculinity.
How many
And
people did you interview, and how long of a period of time?
well, the weekend itself was only 3 days.
Right.
I interviewed about 24 people.
Okay. Out of the 24, what surprised you the most?
It was the trans men, actually. I interviewed 2 leather trans men, and they gave me a really unique perspective that was outside of anything that I heard from the cis gay men.
Right.
And it was this really unique experience of looking at masculinity itself as being completely fluid. And I really dug that. Ellen Page has just come out
Yes.
now called Elliot.
Yes.
And so we call him Elliot now.
Yes.
And I would love to interview him about
Me too. Me too.
what that is.
Yeah.
Is he a straight guy now? Is he, so it makes you wonder,
Yeah. And what was the thing that you came out of the interviewing process that just till this day stuck beside the trans, that sort of like shocked the hell out of you?
Yeah. I mean, whatever our expression, that we be ourselves, absolutely authentic, to be ourselves and stop apologizing for our feelings and stop apologizing for being me. And the part of the film includes a comic book kind of audiovisual presentation of my story. And in it, it shows me as a young, sissy, young gay boy who was singing, and then he was bullied terribly and cast out of the Catholic Church, and then starting a journey as a young gay man, doing a chorus line, for instance, and then becoming a producer and discovering leather, and also recovery, which is important too. But finding leather, really allowed me to find a community. And there really is a leather community if you look
Yes.
for it,
Yes.
particularly in the title world, as they call it. This is the contests,
Right.
which are kind of like a kinky Miss America, if you think about it.
Right. Or a RuPaul season, All
Maybe
Star
like
season.
a Butch RuPaul.
RuPaul All Star season. Yeah.
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 Yeah, where they all come out and they have a little speech and they
Yeah.
talk about what their kinks are,
Yeah.
and they parade around in very little, mostly. At some point, it's like the Miss America pageant with the
Right.
bathing suit, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
they come out in leather jock straps and answer, you know, silly questions,
Right.
and the idea really is it's a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage for a lot of gay men to own their masculinity. And that's the part of the leather scene that I really wanted to capture. And so there are several scenes in the documentary about the International Mr. Leather Contest, which is the biggest gay leather contest in the world. It had 68 participants the year that I was there in 2019. And the one who won was a trans man,
Wow.
which was kind of cool. And I interviewed him. Jack Thompson, he's fabulous, a really, really interesting dude, and he gave me a little perspective about what we call masculinity. He said what we call masculinity, whether it's a way of walking or dressing or speaking or acting, isn't something that just men do.
Yep.
That women could have the same sense of self-determination and confidence and be completely feminine. So it kind of blows the lid off of what it is to be masculine. And yet we first notice about somebody what? What's the first thing we notice about somebody?
For me, their teeth.
I could
I'm
say
just my teeth.
I could say somebody's ass, but no.
Well, no. If you see the
First
front,
thing,
if you see the back, yeah. But the front is the teeth. Yeah. Yeah.
the first thing that we notice about people is their sex. Are they a man or a woman?
Correct. Yeah. I'm assuming it was a man, but yes.
And, you know, with the trans thing now, it really confuses a lot of people.
Yep. So IML, you choose to go to IML the weekend, the compound, the mothership of it all.
Yeah.
When IML started years ago, it had a certain presence. That presence evolved
Yes.
so much as years went by. Did you find the initial IML intention is still related to this day? Is still capturing the essence of what it could have been or what it was intended to be years ago?
Yeah. Well,
You get diluted.
IML started in 1979. And it was really an offshoot of a bar event that Chuck Renslow and Dom Orazudas had started at the Chicago Eagle Bar. And basically it was just, let's find the hottest guy in the bar. And so they'd pick out people and they'd say, you walk around with a little number on you and then come out in just your underwear or a jock or whatever. And that was the extent of it. And it got so popular with people that they decided to make it an event outside of
Right.
the bar.
Right.
And it, in the very early iteration of IML, it was about being butch. It was
Right.
who's the butchest, who's the manliest, who looks the hottest. That was all part and parcel of what it is. And how it's developed is that it's become much more about people's heart. It's about what you carry in your heart. And I've seen some of the most beautiful men on the planet come forward. And if they're carrying around some burden, it really stands in the way of seeing who they really are. And so a lot of these incredibly hot men don't even make it to the top 20.
And where do you see IML now in 2020 or 2019?
IML is and continues to be about moving forward the process of opening doors onto the darker areas of sexuality. And we see a lot more people coming into a community now where they go into the title world or they just go into the bar scene,
Right.
and there's much more conversation between people because it's not in a dark corner anymore.
Right.
So in a way, IML facilitates that. And it also creates connections with people that last for the rest of their life, which is wonderful. So IML really ultimately is about community. It's about chosen family.
Except it's so freaking cold that time of the year. That's all.
May,
Oh yeah, yeah. It could be. It could be. It was for me. It was. Yeah. It's a hit
I
and
don't know
miss.
about
But
you, but I stay indoors the whole time
you
when I'm
gotta
there.
eat. You gotta walk around
I stay in leather indoors, and
indoors. I'm not
I
going
don't
out.
even know what city I'm in.
Yeah. No, it gotten pretty cold. But yeah, that's Chicago. It's a great city. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So in a way, the intention of the piece at the beginning was I wanted to create media representations of masculine gay men where there aren't any.
right.
And what I discovered was that masculine gay men are a breed entirely of their own because they continue to be gay men.
Right.
A friend of mine went to his first leather bar years ago, and he wanted to overhear a conversation between two leather men to see, what they were up to.
Exactly.
And the conversation was this: then you fold in the eggs, and he realized this is just gay guys.
Right. Right.
They're in leather,
Right.
but it's a very specific expression of uh, being gay, and that is to embrace one's own masculinity and to reach for, without apology, the masculinity of others. And then you get into the kink element as well, and that goes to all kinds of places, which I don't know if you want to hear about or not.
I know about it. I'm just sure if we have enough time for this. But yeah, no, I know. I wasn't born last night, but okay. So where are you now with Butch Please? What stage of the game are you at? Is it completed? Is it where are you with the production part?
Well, the production in terms of the interviews is almost over. I have one more interview to do
Okay.
with one of my mentors, Guy Baldwin, who is a famous author and psychotherapist here in Los Angeles, and a former international Mr. Leather.
There we go.
I was actually only Los Angeles Leather. I was Mr. Los Angeles Leather in 2001, and I came in fourth in IML.
Oh, what's
Anyway,
wrong with them?
well, I don't know.
Oh,
I
God,
never figured that out.
we'll talk to them. We'll
But the
figure it
guy
out.
who won is great, Stefan Mueller. He's
Right.
wonderful. But where we are in the process is, as we speak, my composer is writing music for the whole thing. It's about 25 minutes now,
Okay.
and then we shoot Guy Baldwin, and then I think we'll be in a good place to start submitting the film to the film festivals, including Outfest. It has quite a few men of color in it, and so we're going to go to Outfest Fusion to begin with,
Nice.
which is really for people of color,
Right.
because apparently there wasn't enough focus on that in regular Outfest, which I think is terrific. The more festival, the better.
And isn't it ironic that you have this whole year with no Outfest, and maybe God knows, hopefully next year we'll see that you have this whole year to catch up because there was no Outfest in 2020.
Yeah, there's definitely no rush in 2020 to finish
So
anything.
it give you time to play, and see what you
Yeah,
can do. So
and explore.
you can
Yeah,
even miss anything. Like, oh my God, I missed Outfest 2020. I'm going to be now 21.
yeah.
No,
Well, now that we don't have other things to distract us, like
yeah,
sex or
right. Speak for yourself.
family,
Speak for yourself.
or I have sex with myself. That's as far as it goes. But family and other distractions, things
Right.
pulling us in different directions. I think the film is so much better for it.
No, I totally listen. I always said COVID could be a blessing, it could be a curse, and it depends how you see it. In some areas, it's definitely a curse, and in some
Yeah.
areas, it's definitely it created things like in your case, you don't have to rush to
Yeah,
in
but on the
2020.
same token, I lost two friends to COVID. So
Like I said, it could be it's either way. It's not one or the other. It just depends on what situation you're in. But
yeah,
definitely in
I've
the
also
movie,
said that about COVID as well,
yeah,
and that could be said about any setback.
this is a big setback.
Yeah.
This is a big this is a big setback. But yeah, you're right. In any setbacks, there's two sides of the coin. But this was definitely, you have to, you know, you can make it really terrible, and then you can cave. I almost caved, and
What did that look like?
oh, it was terrible. I was in Florida. It was. I'm not going to talk about it here because this is your show. This is your time. It was just. I no. It was just. It was a very, especially in March and April when it started.
Oh, that
It
was
was
the
just.
worst,
It was
wasn't it?
just the worst. The worst for me. Yeah.
Because our heads were so full of
So
so
full of.
much fear,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that seems to have worn away, which is unfortunate because now the rates of transmission are so much higher, and I think everyone's kind of not as reticent as they used to be.
No,
And
I just need to manage the fear differently. But then I couldn't even manage it. I just felt it was just a very crazy feeling, and I don't even know what. I'm 58 years old. Why am I so scared?
oh, we're the same age. I just turned 58.
I'll be 59, so I'm 1 year ahead of you, 2 days.
Ah, 2 days? Well,
Yeah,
happy birthday. Happy
thank
early
you,
birthday.
thank you. Yeah, I'm 1 year older. Very different in your late 50s. It just feels very different.
It does.
It does. Damn
I
it.
still think that I'm in my early 50s sometimes. Like, oh, no, wait, no, I'm now in my late 50s.
No, it
I'm in
feels
my
different.
early late 50s
Yeah, yeah. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. There's no worries here. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You're making movies. We're making podcasts. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, you are. And congratulations on these podcasts.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing. You've done quite a few now.
You're my you're my 11 weeks straight. I haven't skipped a week.
Great.
Yeah, so I started 11 weeks ago, and I've been very fortunate. Great stories, great people. The idea is to have this conscious-driven conversations to learn what people like you are up to, and if the listeners hopefully can be inspired
Now, I
um,
got a question for you,
and
okay?
have an answer.
What was the last gay male representation that you saw in a movie or whatever, and how did you feel about it?
In a movie, it wasn't a movie. It was a sitcom. It was a Netflix
Uh-huh.
series.
Okay.
Um, 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 I'm a sucker for romance, but I also
Okay.
have another side of me that can, be on the wild side, if you call. It was Schitt's Creek.
Okay.
I love
That's great.
Patrick. I love Patrick. Patrick's
Oh yeah.
character is just the best. I mean, I was just, he's just the best. He's just so wholesome and so sweet and so sincere and so real and so
Yeah.
humble. David is a little wild and crazy, but he can come down a notch. But
Yeah,
Patrick
I think
was
a lot of
probably.
us relate to David more than we do to
I would
Patrick.
marry Patrick, but I want to be a David, but I would marry Patrick.
Right. I could see you in those outfits.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For a minute, and then I would go back to my, other.
When I think about like great performance, I just saw Uncle Frank, which
Yes,
was on Netflix, was it?
yes, and then it was on.
And it's played by Paul Bettany, and he just did not bring the gay to it. A lot of straight actors take the role thinking, "Oh, well, this will be a stretch," but then they don't bring the gay to it. And what I mean by that is, let's look, for example, at Sean Penn playing Milk. He brought the gay to it because he's an actor of great facility,
Mhm.
and did the, he wasn't afraid. I think there's so much fear by straight people, straight men in particular, to look gay. And
Or
Hollywood
perhaps
is,
they can't relate. I mean, you have to relate to the part. Like I can relate to the story that you're telling me about IML. I've been there, I've seen it, I've witnessed it, so I can
uh-huh.
relate and I can understand it. If you even want to act it, I could act it, but I think it'll be difficult. You have to be a master at your craft to
Huh.
do a job that you cannot relate to, but you brought it down.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's a
And
craft. That's a
that's the
master
level of
craft.
actor,
That's a
I
craft.
don't care that they're straight if in
Yeah,
that case,
right,
because they really brought something real to it, and therefore we have representation.
right.
Now, when you look at Rocket Man, I didn't believe either one of those people were gay. And well, Taron Egerton did get a nomination for it. I don't know why. It just didn't play for me. And that's about representation, because I really believe that gay men and women are a separate gender altogether, the third gender, as we call it. And trans could be fourth gender, who knows? But
Exactly.
but that representation, which has been so kind of beaten down over the generations, is now starting to become more available. And we see it in the stereotypical way, like with RuPaul's Drag Race, and we
Right.
see it with Nelly's swishy characters. But we're really just at the beginning of seeing a masculine gay men representations. But so many times they miss the mark because they're directed to just be like anybody else, when I really don't think gay people are like everybody else.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not. And
And
that's what I took away from making Butch Please, really.
I can't wait to see it in theater. I'll be the first one there. Peter, thank you so much for this delicious conversation. To the listeners, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. It's different. It's not for everyone, but nevertheless, it's artistic. It's great work. It's an expression of certain people's point of view. So I hope you all can go. Where can they find the trailer? Just to Peter.
It's on my Facebook page. If you go to Peter Fitzgerald on Facebook, it's posted there, and it's also on my YouTube channel, which is Peter Fitzgerald.
Great, amazing. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
The next time, take care, everyone. This is Sam West, the Signature West Podcast. The next time.